And can I get an approval of the agenda? Motion?
Motion.
Can I get a second? Thank you, Marty. Questions? All those in favor? Is that me?
Yeah, so you better mute. Need to mute Zoom.
Boys, I'm just building some good.
This is like. Probably the YouTube channel is.
Yeah. That's the one that.
Yes.
needs to be muted.
There we go, yeah.
I don't think it's around. I don't think if you mute the Zoom, then it will be recorded.
I think that'll do it. So where was I?
You were just.
Oh, I called, yes.
So we have approval of the
Approval agenda. Number 3, conflict of interest disclosure. Are there any conflicts to declare from folks around the table? Okay, perfect. With that, we'll move to a presentation from Jim Tech on cost sharing principles.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everyone. So this is a continuation basically on discussing the options and the numbers and the financial model. We will be presenting several options that have to do with basically the life discount for the most part. Time and distance is there, continues to be there, so there. So we have basically option number 1 is the legislative formula, which does not have any factors for time and distance or light. Option 2 is where time and distance is at 3.5 and there is no discount for light. Option 3 is 3.5 and 20% on light, 4 is 40 to 10 and so on. Option 7 is basically a blank page. So it has nothing for factors right now. In case any of the members would like to see what changing any of those metrics would mean, we can easily plug that in and let you know what it is. It's basically a mirror now of the legislative formula because there's no adjustments for time and distance in that. So
from a context perspective, this is where we've come to as a committee through progressive elaboration of all the discussions we've had to date. You know, the legislative formula and some of the factors that could be adjusted according to what we see as a region for suitable infrastructure sharing.
I want to reiterate one thing, that any adjustments for time and distance or like any adjustments at all with this formula and with the legislative formula both, they would be absorbed, if you wish, or compensated by the host community. So the legislative formula, I should mention, discusses the aspect of distance and time without giving a specific way to get there. But in that formula, in the legislative model, the guidelines, it's indicated that the host community will be the natural or the default entity to pick it up. Otherwise, any other alteration, if the adjustments are picked up by other entities, that would automatically mean this model here would be more money than the legislated formula for those entities. And hence, it's a, disincentive, if you wish, from a financial perspective strictly, so.
And it's worth noting that this formula would be readjusted on a yearly basis on population and property assessment.
Yeah, and so is the guidelines.
Yes.
The guidelines go by two things, tax base and population. Tax base is adjusted annually. Population, they say it's adjusted whenever there's a census, basically. So this one here on the population side will be adjusted anytime there's a new census, but for the tax base component, Mr. Chair, you're right.
So just like all of our other budgeting scenarios as a municipality, that resets. Okay. Okay. So let's discuss. John, would you like to?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say, and just that we're all singing from the same hymn book and moving forward together. The numbers that we're using are projected numbers. We just want to make sure that that's clear. They could be a little less, they could be likely a little more. It all depends on what that final cost comes out as, and we won't know that until the end of the architectural and design phase. And we won't know that until we actually go to tender in terms of that. We also have a federal budget coming down tomorrow that will impact how we move forward in terms of whether or not the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program is recapitalized or if it's provided what they're now terming, or the buzz seems to be next gen funding. So we'll know tomorrow more about that. And it'll give us a little bit better idea of where we're at. So but under the premise of what we're doing now is following the Investing in Canada Infrastructure model, which many are familiar with. It's normally a third, if you will, and that's the premise that we've been basing these estimates on. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that, because due to you, Mr. Chair, raising the point that these will be adjusted annually. But once we know every bit of the true cost, and like I say, in a great world, that will come down a bit and save us some money on the long term. So, thank you, Mr. Chair.
So we don't know. The denominator, we don't know yet, but chances are things aren't going down. They could possibly go up.
Yeah.
And the numerator is something that will be revisited on a yearly basis. Sorry, I like numerators and denominators. I don't know why. I don't even know if they'd still teach it in school. So. Comments. And I know last meeting we had, one of the challenges, centered around the time and distance seemed to be, and anybody correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not afraid of being wrong. Seemed like we had some consensus that time and distance appeared to be a contributing factor, that contributing by both structures of the imagination, both financially and as a principle, seemed appropriate for our discussions and bringing something forth to the minister. But the other challenge from a like facility perspective seemed to be what we got hung up on.
Yeah.
So.
And in this particular example about the aquatic center, we're only having like for Oromocto at this stage. So just to be clear on that piece as well. And any discount or no, any discount in that sense would be strictly absorbed by Fredericton with no implication on anybody else. So if Oromocto gets 0, Fredericton is compensating 0. If they get 10%, 20%, that means the implication is strictly on Fredericton with no implication on anybody else.
So treat it much the same way as time and distance is in the legislation, but not fully thought out as a practice. Like they go 50-50, but you may consider time and distance. There's no discussion of like. I think like came into the conversation for us about a year ago, when we first started talking about regional infrastructure. And that's how like worked its way in and in through these models that are presented towards this.
We weren't involved.
No.
But we heard it during the visioning session and the workshop,
Yes.
around this table for sure that, it was brought up that consideration should be for light. And then the discussion also whether this particular aquatic center has a lake. Then the discussion was, okay, there's nothing like it, but there are programs within it that could be held somewhere else in a lake. There was several discussions around that piece,
Yes.
around this table.
Thanks. So I think that's where my dilemma really lies, is using like, if we're, because I was really comfortable with our thinking around regional as being unique, exceptional. This is a facility that doesn't exist anywhere else in the region. It's a one of a kind. Oh, like that sort of language resonates with me for the regional facilities versus the sub-regional, which we're also talking about. So given that, I don't know how, if we're all accepting of that, I don't know how we then can attribute a like. And I mean, I was here at the table when we're all essentially said, yeah, we're good with that, but we're not recommending it until we get to the financial formula, which again, I take issue with. I think the two should have been separated. I think that we should have determined, is this regional? And then we did our math, then we did the funding formula. We didn't go that route, and that's fine, but it is where I'm hung up. I 100% stand behind the time and distance. It's quantifiable. Right? Like I can take that case to my residents and explain, and they can figure that out. We could do the math on that one. The like is subjective to the point. I think it's arguable whether it's even actual, but it's definitely subjective. And I can't rationalize it in my own head, let alone being able to rationalize it to all of our constituents, to all of our residents, right? Because the facility is so different. But again, I don't even want to get caught up. I would like us to create a formula that, yes, the variables might change, but the methodology can be consistent no matter what we build. And I just don't want us to create a formula, turn ourselves into a pretzel, as I keep saying, to create a formula that everybody can likes because the numbers work for their community. And John knows talk about him and Bob. I love Ormucto. I want everyone part of this project. I really, really do want everyone. This morning I was at, we broke the ground on the Performing Arts Center. And anyone who's followed knows the numbers of that Performing Arts Center. It's definitely regional. I mean, half of the people who attend don't live within Fredericton city limits. But we didn't have the Regional Service Commission wasn't operating in this space when we came up with that. Ormucto very kindly wrote a check and sent it to us. And like, we're good partners because that's going to feed the region. This new pool aquatic center, I want us to all be at a groundbreaking ceremony for that too. Because I got to tell you, it's exciting to know that we can deliver something of this magnitude to our residents only because we're working together. Like literally we can do this because we're working together, but it's a regional facility that's unlike any other. Therefore, I can't wrap my head around a like discount because I don't think it's like, I can't measure it, I can't quantify it, and I can't rationalize it. So I think that's where I'm stuck at.
I got a couple points and I apologize. It wasn't at the last meeting. Actually, it was working. So I forgot about it. I should get to there. But I have 2 points. The first one, I'm looking at Capital Region Rural District. I gave the thing that we have 26 different budgets in the capital. And the like and distance. I mean, Burton and Gary, rural, Noonan, they're all different areas coming here. Is that included in that? Did you include that in there so that we can say to the people of rural, like this is the cost associated versus somebody from rural is going to take 45 minutes to get here probably. To where the pool is. Somebody from Noonan, only coming from the north side of the river, God knows how long that'll take, but it's gonna like not as long as it does from rural. So that's where we're talking dollars and cents, and we're all talking, and you brought it up, so I'm not gonna put it on you, but you're saying come to your constituents when you're about building this thing. And the lake and the wake, Burton and Gary goes to the base pool. Basically, that's where they go to swim, learn to swim and everything, they go there. So that aspect is there. If we're talking residents, then you have to sell it to you. I've said right here, it's gotta be a sales pitch. I'm a salesman. You've gotta have a sales pitch to go back to whoever you're talking to about this facility. So the have, or whatever that's called, that percentage, whatever that lightness.
Yeah.
A pool is a pool is a pool. You can swim in it, you can learn to swim in it, you can do exercises in it, which is all being done at the base pool and stuff like that. So it's just a bigger pool than the base pool. And the base pool has another big pool in the summer that's all, is an outdoor pool, is used for other things. So to me, to sell to people, we need to have the proper aspect. I mean, yes, it's being built in Fairton's backyard and everybody in Fairton, geez, my taxes are going up because they built that pool, that regional pool, and everybody should give some of the money to it. But it also comes down to maybe there has to be, I don't know what the word I'm using this. A fee,
It's a user fee.
User fee. A user fee incorporated somehow in this, because realistically, how many people from rural are gonna come to this pool? But we're asking them to pay for it. They may say, oh, sorry. I'm no need to go there. I will not go there and stuff like that, but I have to pay for it. So that's a whole aspect that has to be taken into this whole aspect. That's when I'm looking at them numbers over there, I'm saying, yeah. People, you're gonna go cent, 2 cents, 3 cents on tax base, that you have to sell that. You know, and you don't build it in every community, you build it in one community, and that's fine. But and I'm big on that.
Just on that, get the question answered that you asked regarding the geographic distribution of the Gatineau Regional Service Division.
Through you,
Or
Mr.
sorry,
Chair,
Gatineau Regional District.
through you, Mr. Chair, the same logic would apply to each of these districts. You can apply this model looking at the bottom line, the overall 147,000 is your end goal, then based on population and tax base in each of these regions and the distance, this would be your overall goal. The 147 is the ultimate number. And you can use this exact same model to see how much each of the areas would pay. But we have to have accurate information about tax base and population in those.
I provided that.
It was strictly tax base, I believe, is what I've seen.
Don?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a comment on how historically, the rural district in its previous iteration of local service districts used, to break it down on a variable cost per LSD, would be a departure from existing previous practice. Previous practice, these amounts were shared uniformly across local service districts. Even with respect to garbage collection, fire, and typically what happened as a result of that is that the larger local service districts to some extent subsidized the smaller ones. So if we were to present this to the province, it would be new to them. And I don't see why they would, I don't know how they would respond to that, but it's not something they've done previously.
But I sent this to Brittany, and she was the one who said, oh, no, that can't work that way. And she was the one that broke it all down and gave it to me, so, and she's now responsible for all the rural. Well, when she went back after her maternity, but that aspect, so. That's where. That's the question that has to be answered to people. I know if I lived in rural, I'd want the answer.
Yeah.
One more point of consideration regarding a regional asset and user fees. In a way, philosophically or fundamentally, it's how would it be regional if it's user fees? So something for the board to consider as well. I fully get the logic behind it, but if it's deemed the regional asset for the entire region, but then you're given the option to pay by you contribute through user fees only, that's something to be also, I think, to be discussed.
Like I said a couple weeks ago, Kate, I don't often agree with you. But I do in this case. There's a large spin-off for all municipalities here. You get into user fees, it's very difficult to budget for the aquatic center. You don't know who's going to be using it, if it's budgeted up front on a, you know, a shared basis from each municipality. I wouldn't want to be in Fredericton's position, not know what how I could budget or who was going to use it or what kind of money was coming in to fund this, or whoever ends up being the owner and the governorship of it and all this. We haven't gotten there yet, but I think in this case, we're either all in or we're all out. Sorry again, John, but it's just the way I look at it and the way I feel. Like I do agree 100% with Kate on it's not really a like facility in Oromocto, in my opinion, but that's only my opinion. And how many people in Central York will use this? Probably not as many as we would wish, but we're willing to fund it as a region collaboration, because we know there will be spin-offs for other things down the road. Maybe might take years, but
Well, I'll add to that, and you didn't have the benefit of being at the last meeting, and we did talk about the differentiators of this facility versus other facilities. You know, we talked in terms of the type of programming and scale of programming that's offered. So we did spend a bit of time going through that because I think that was key, because it certainly is. Obviously, we all are trying to put on a sales hat, right? But on the flip side of that, sales sometimes gets a dirty rap. It's about, in my opinion, and now speaking from an Arcadia perspective, this to me goes to making a stronger region to support my population and give them more access to things that they would not be able to have onto themselves. And I think I'm gonna go back to the meeting we all sat in, well, not all of us, down here last week when we talked about the healthcare, the Oromocto area healthcare piece and in attracting medical professionals to the area. We, in that meeting, which was a great meeting and phenomenal work being done, one of the things we acknowledged in terms of attracting individuals is lifestyle. And this one is going to set us apart for others. Once you take out of the nuts and bolts and stuff of having a place to practice, how much money you can throw off at a medical professional, it's what kind of lifestyle am I going to have? What kind of lifestyle is my family that's accompanying me or that I'm going to grow in your area going to have? And that's resonating with people more so than it ever has. And just to put my hat on, that's what attracts me to both regional collaboration, because it amplifies our ability as a municipality to have more than what we can afford on our own, and B, maintain more than what we can afford on our own with lessened risk. Because, and it's really key to me that, you know, this formula, that what goes into this gets reevaluated, every year from a tax-based perspective, and B, what's the cycle for StatsCan population? 7 years or five? 5. Every 5 years from a population perspective. Do we want to see those two figures go up in this province and all of our municipalities every single year? Well, yes, we do. Is it realistic to think it's going to happen every single year? Well, you would not be paying attention to history if you would say it is realistic every single year it's going to go up. You know, so we have to lessen our risk, but while also thinking about prosperity. So
the infrastructure has to be there to support that population.
yes, it does.
This is one thing that probably needs to be in place to support that.
I know we can't do it. Speaking from an Arcadia perspective. But we have people that want to move let's put housing aside.
Yeah.
Want to move here. for what we have now, but we want to retain them as well, and this will help from a retention perspective. Any other?
Yeah, I don't have anything constructive to add. I can be deconstructive, but I feel like that's not necessary at this point. Area, I think I'm clear on where Oromocto stands, and so if we can't come to that, that's fine. It just depends how bad the region wants a pool. It's that simple.
Well, I think it behooves us all as committee members to recognize that a pool is not a pool is not a pool. Like, that's a falsehood that we cannot keep talking about. It's the same way as an Olympic ice surface is different than an NHL size ice surface. Or the same way that an artificial turf soccer field is different than a natural turf soccer field. Those facilities provide opportunities that the others don't. It's the same way as this facility will provide opportunities for folks in the region that no other indoor pool in the region provides. I think that's important that we keep that in mind, because it's fact.
And I would echo that, and I got a perfect example. I have in my professional job, I have an individual who's doing work, gig work on my professional side with us. He's a very talented individual, but he's chosen to work with my organization because he has a daughter that is Olympic qualifying for diving. And he can't hold his typical job that he has because he's getting hauled all around this country for dive competitions. And he is willing to give up his professional life. Thankfully, I have the advantage of being able to offer him alternative employment at his own pace to do the kind of things that he needs to do, because that's how important it is to his daughter and him to be in that competitive space. Now, I know we're not talking here competitive diving, but it's just people and professionals. Anyone is, we're often willing to make compromises based on what drives us. And it's not just the financial side, but it's about lifestyle and opportunities afforded both ourselves and our children. So, and I feel very strongly about punching above our weight here in New Brunswick. And I feel we have an opportunity from a collaboration perspective here in this region to punch above our weight. But we can only do it collaboratively.
Okay. So what we gathered is there is no like asset in the region. It's unique. But what we also heard is in a pool, there are some programs that will be offered in the new aquatic center, like learning how to swim or small recreational swim, that could be conducted in another pool in the region. So
That are being conducted.
from that sense, we will refrain from using the word like. And hence, it's unique. However, how can we get over the portion of the programming that could be conducted in a pool from the community who has one? For example, in this case, it's Oromocto. The fact that a lot of folks from Oromocto would be using the pool on base to learn how to swim and to recreate versus everybody else in the region who would come to Fredericton for those purposes. Would there be an adjustment on that aspect? So to translate that into numbers, obviously, when we say there's no like, and it doesn't count if you even have a pool for any programming use, we're talking about 0%. But if 50% of Oromocto population will learn how to swim in Oromocto and recreate for swimming in Oromocto and come for competitive training in Fredericton, would that mean if half the population do that, would that mean Oromocto would be in the 20-25% adjustment for that aspect?
So how do we know that they're 50%?
I'm just
And we're
throwing,
just guessing, right?
I'm just throwing it
And we're
out there.
just guessing that, we're just guessing it's 50% that's doing it there. We're just guessing that if there's a brand new aquatic center that's probably as easy to get to as the one on base, when you really look at driving into things and the speed at which you can drive to the base and all of that. Maybe it's not gonna be 50% anymore, right? And so I just think, that's part of my issue with the like, or the similar, the 25%. It's, we're trying to quantify something that I believe is not quantifiable and then give it a value. And that's part of what I can't wrap my head around. The other thing I want all of us to remember, and I think of it myself, my learn to swim, my swimming lesson, all that stuff that I did in the summer, I did in lakes in New Brunswick. I did at camps where there were lifeguards that were teaching those programs. I did a lot of it at Camp Medley. So I don't even know that we can say that the only other place that programs like that happen is in a pool in Oromocto. I think those kinds of programs happen probably throughout our region, depending on the programming that's delivered. So that it's all of those things that make me nervous when we're trying, again, we're twisting ourselves into a pretzel to try to make something work. I think you're in on this regional, you buy into the value of this regional aquatic center, or you don't.
Amen.
Yeah, and I think, I'm like, can we vote and move on, please? Like, and I don't even know where the vote would lie. We're talking around and around and around, and so
Well, yeah, but
I wish we spent this long at board meetings talking about issues.
well, it's just, we want to be able to make a good recommendation to the board so that we don't have to.
Yeah.
I think that's.
Good luck with that.
Well, so we're not so I'm not gonna use the word argue.
No,
We're comfortable in the time and distance discussion.
Absolutely.
And I know there's some challenges from the geographical
Actual
disbursement.
usage of the time and distance is fine. I can see that, but actual usage from the time and distance, are they actually gonna go? That's the key. I mean, you said it yourself, you learn to swim in pools and lakes and everything else, and you have a backyard pool, which costs you $10,000. Well, I'm sorry to say that if my kid was swimming, if he's in the pool, I built $10,000. If he's, and like your business friend that's a competitive diver, she'll go everywhere. An elite athlete in a family will go wherever they have to go and pay whatever they have to do to play their sport, whatever the sport is. Like I know I have friends that take their kid all the way to Moncton, play ringette at a high level. It's not offered in Fredericton or down in Moncton. There they go every weekend. But we're only talking a small percentage of the population of even Fredericton.
Well, I would say I gotta say something on this one that I feel strongly about, is that word elite. I like to eliminate that word elite and what we're doing with this facility and regional collaboration so that we don't have user fees and we have access. We can have more individuals be able to be afforded that opportunity so they don't have to. That's the only thing so that they don't have to pony up the thousands and tens of $1,000s at times, and they have it in their own backyard by an equivalent of whatever time and distances is. They wouldn't have that opportunity otherwise. And that's why I come up with that regional piece, swimming in a river in New Brunswick or a pool or a lake is great from a survival perspective, but the opportunities afforded at that competitive or professional level being seen by our residents and their kids and attracting individuals to the province, I think is key because we start to put a big boy pants on. Sorry, Grant.
Well, I think it's the same point I was gonna make, is it's both opportunity for all, not for that small percentage that can afford to drive their kids to Moncton or to Montreal or wherever I have to go. The more opportunity we provide, the better, the more, the hope is, or will be that the more of our population gets physically active, right? And lowers the cost in all kinds of other areas, right? To the benefit of all. Hence the public investment towards recreation.
So any other kind of wrap up comments? So
I just read this morning in some of the data, the cost in 2019 was $38 million. That's correct? Depended on location, 42 and then
It went from 26 up to 38 and now we're closer to probably what we're talking about here based on the estimates that we have.
yes, the reason for me bringing it up is we're going on a costing or a funding formula here for a project. We don't really know what the price tag is. We haven't, as Kate says, we're assuming the cost here of how much has it escalated since 2019. We could probably double it and that would make it closer to 70 million.
John,
Yeah, so we, in terms of that, through the steering committee, or through you, Mr. Chair, to the members, the steering committee has received an estimate, if you will, but it's a Class D estimate. And we still have to get through the full architectural design phase on that. And so we're on that. John sits on that. Sarah, who's supporting Director Rogers here today, is in on that, and there's others as well. And the LSM from the regional rural district is on that as well. So anyway, with the communities that we're participating in the architectural design phase of it. And look, this estimate is probably fairly close in terms of what we need, Director Gillespie, and in terms of that, that's why that number was pretty much chosen to base things on, if you will, and those are based on more today's real dollars.
My reason for bringing that up is if we're not all in, and I said we're all out if we're not in, is as this goes on in time down the road, the cost goes up,
Just keeps going.
population changes, the tax base changes, there's going to be bigger and bigger spreads if we're not all in this on time and distance, in my opinion.
The other thing is that this assumes a 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 contribution. Tomorrow there's a big announcement, I think, like you mentioned, John. So again, that's another factor to think of.
and what we're coming out of here is we're hopefully getting to a point where we make a recommendation to the board. So can I get a show of hands, and if you don't feel comfortable with this, those on the committee, that we're comfortable with the time and distance portion of the suggested formula?
The formula or the
The
number?
time and distance. Well, I guess we can use the
Two
number.
parts to this, folks, is there's the formula and then there's the numbers.
I can't say the numbers yet because,
Nobody's played with the numbers except me.
yes,
So you can be assured I've run my numbers, so I know what I can negotiate. But if you haven't had time to play with the formula, then those are just numbers that we've been given. They don't mean they have to be those numbers. But if nobody's taken the time to understand the numbers or the formula, then I don't know how you make an educated, I guess, way forward.
I think one of the things in that is that we're making a decision based on what it brings to the region. And we know the numbers are going to fluctuate on a yearly basis with both assessment on a 5-year basis, both based on population, and it will frankly fluctuate on other things like operations. We have $1 million, if I last recall, in there set for a yearly operational cost. That will change year over year as well. So just what the contributing factors are to the formula is what I'm going to ask for just a show of hands on.
Let me rephrase my opinion. I base my opinion on the figures that Gemtech has given us on the time and distance.
Yes.
And therefore, I agree with the time and distance, not plugging in other numbers.
No.
With the numbers that they have given us.
Do you mean the percentage, Dave? Or the
Yes.
actual- Yeah, the 3.5%.
The number they put in up here in the corner that's fluctuable. Correct? The time and distance.
Everything is fluctuable. Right now, what's presented is 6 options.
But not for time and distance.
No, that's based on if you put it, let's say, for example, there's a new superhighway going to your place, to your region, directly to a regional aquatic center. That would fluctuate.
Right, but I'm just saying, for example, it doesn't have to be 3.5%. It could be 2%.
It could be.
You could plug 2%
Yes.
and see how that does. for you.
But what I said, John, was I'm comfortable basing my decision on the 3.5%. That's what I meant by the figure in the upper left corner.
Right.
I'm good with that. They've come up with that. I don't need a 2 or a 5 or whatever.
And let me remind the committee why we came up with the 3.5 and the 80. And it goes back to the fundamental principle that everybody should contribute something.
Mhm.
So the 3.5 was the threshold where everybody contributes something. Above that threshold, there will be communities who would not contribute anything. So that's why we kind of showed it as a cap.
Right.
At the 80% for the exact same reason. At that time, we were under the understanding that this total discussion wasn't totally fleshed at that time, so we said the 80% is where everybody contributes something. So those numbers, look at them as your highest benchmark.
We didn't think it was a good idea that any municipality come in at 0. It's just,
Yes.
it's just not attainable.
Thank you,
That's what-
Director Duplessis, and that's where these numbers came from.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The way I see it, sitting here observing, is you basically have 3 questions in front of you, and hopefully you can resolve them today. But the first one is this facility regional? You've talked a lot about that, and I think you know where we feel, and I think I can predict what that answer would be.
A duck is a duck.
The second one is, will we adjust the legislative formula because of time and distance? Now, I think I can guess on where you'll vote there. And the third factor is, do we make a further adjustment for a like facility or a similar, well, whatever we want to put the pool in? And I'm not sure what that vote will be. I'm not sure if you've had enough time to reflect on that. But I can notice the more that you get tied into option 2 versus 4 versus 6, you lose sight of the fundamental underlying question. So, so over here we'll call it the staff pen, that's kind of what I'm observing.
So how do we proceed? Can we make one motion without looking at all 3? Like, how do you want us to
We
proceed?
can't actually make a motion.
I know, but we can make a motion though to move to the,
To the board.
yes, yeah,
To
I
the
think
board.
that we would make a motion to
A
recommend to the board.
recommendation.
And just to
Yeah.
explain my thinking, it goes exactly along with what Don's just saying. I was going to find out where we stood on the time and distance factor, saying, are we in agreement as a committee that is something that influences, or sorry, that would go into the recommendation for the board, and then I was going to get into like.
Okay, say again, I'm good on the number that's in the left-hand corner for time and distance.
Okay. Okay.
Time and
25
distance.
Time and distance. Grant,
Yeah,
time and distance? John,
For me, it doesn't matter. So time, distance, number, sure.
okay. Okay, so anybody?
Yeah.
So then now like,
So far, this is cleared. We're moving in that direction now, or we're staying here, right? To make things easy, the 3.5 and 0 is cleared by what just happened. So at this point, we're moving in that direction, or, yeah,
so it's at a binary that it's like is not a contributing factor, or it's a contributing factor with a certain percentage assigned. So first ask, is like a contributing factor according to the committee for recommendation to the board when it comes to regional lives?
Are you starting with me? I've already stated, Like is, it has a very wide range, extremely wide, and to me, it's too wide to put assumption on it, as Kate says. So my final opinion is, it's not like, it's an aquatic center that stands alone, so no like for me.
No like.
I recommend to the board.
No like.
Not on this one anyway.
I like, I'm a like.
You're like,
I have another question though. Are we guaranteed it's a third, a third, a third?
no,
No.
And if it's like, goes up to 60,000, 60 million, if the feds and the province are gonna, so what are we gonna do? Gonna go down smaller? Or are we not gonna build?
I think that all depends,
All depends.
but yes, all depends.
Okay, I'll just,
Yeah.
because then if. it
Yeah,
does
we're
go
not.
Smaller, then the like is a big question.
There-
We're
There's a
not
factor
guaranteed.
tomorrow that could change that.
Yes,
There's a factor later in the fall
Oh, I
that
know that.
possibly could change
But
this.
I'm just curious about.
I think we need to
That's written in.
revisit, I mean, we'll need to revisit everything if we don't get contributions.
but I'll go back to like here.
Well, yeah, I think if the committee says it's a regional facility, then we're also saying that it's unique and there isn't a like, there's
Okay.
no other lake facility in the region.
Okay. I think I know this one.
Yeah, I mean, I can't in good conscience sell this, so the answer is no.
Is no. Okay. And just because I'm a contributing member, I'll say, I will go with no for like. So we have a couple pros and
Well, I'm confused on John. You said,
No.
you said no,
he wants like, he likes a like.
Oh,
but I was confused by the no.
so we got four
You did
to
say
two.
no, right?
So, well, no, in the
You got a
sense that
recommendation to the.
we like
Yeah.
a like facility.
Therefore, recommendation on
Okay.
the formula.
Yeah.
It's all done.
I'm clear.
Time to move on.
So,
Let's roll.
Okay,
Then we have to come back to the-
so, well, but there's a lot more things to discuss on this one. Governance is certainly one piece.
So had we not, I feel like did we not do all of this at a meeting, a couple of 3 meetings ago?
No.
It was a meeting that Sarah sat at this table. We had a presentation on governance, we had a presentation on operations and on.
We just walked through all the contributing factors.
Oh, okay, but I thought we kind of had
No.
full agreement on.
No.
certain things.
No.
Okay.
No conclusion.
Wishful thinking,
We,
clearly.
well, we were coming up on, there was some coalescence there.
Yes, it felt that way.
That felt good.
But now
I
it's
think
definitive.
this is the one that we have to get to a point to bring it to the minister.
Right
This
on.
is the whole formula discussion.
Did we not determine that Fredericton is the maintenance?
No,
Operation and maintenance?
I think we're coalescing around certain things, but that is not, we don't have to go there right now. We're just getting to the point to make a recommendation to the minister for the mid-year piece on the formula piece. Because this is what it all comes down to in terms of the
So
legislation.
we don't need
right?
any governance or maintenance
We have to
at
get
the moment?
We will, but we don't have to get there by June
Not
of this
today.
year.
Not today. What we're looking to do,
So,
what we're looking to do is try to get to this sorted out today. And then we would have to have another meeting in order to try to get through the, sorry, Mr. Chair, it's
No, go right ahead.
members. And what we would do is look at the, ownership, operation, maintenance, and really ownership and operation. The operations and maintenance should go with the ownership. To be quite honest in terms of that.
So I guess, why, if we can do that today, why can't we do it? Like, I felt that we coalesced enough that we can make a decision on that today. To recommend, again, we're just making this recommendation to the board, right? But I
yes,
think
that's
This
what we're doing.
committee's had we had a really thorough.
We had a very
presentation from Gemtech. We had, that day we were here a couple hours at least.
Three.
Like, to the extent that I did think we'd come to agreement, I appreciate we didn't, and it needs to be formalized, but if we can get there today, I mean, why don't we?
So can I suggest one thing? We keep the funding formula to one side against over that. So with that, can I have a motion to bring to the board a formula for a regional aquatic center that takes into account time and distance?
Mr. Chair, if I
Yes.
might,
Yeah,
I
you're
don't-
better at phrasing these.
thank you. I don't believe you need that.
No?
You have 4 members who have indicated they're in favor of, the legislative formula with an adjustment for time and distance. That's a majority.
Okay.
And so you have chosen your funding formula. And this committee has gone through the process to make that recommendation to the board. So I don't think you need a motion. You don't have to go back and vote
Okay.
again.
it's secure enough. Like, I don't know, do we all?
Well, we'll have to, the board is
did
gonna
vote.
have discussion.
It's,
Yeah, we
I
did.
don't think we can make a motion here in the committee. I'm
No,
sorry.
you're gonna make a
You
recommendation
can
to
make
the
a
board.
rec-
It's
we
a
can make that,
recommendation to the
right.
board, yes.
Right, and you're clear on the recommendation you wanna make.
Yes, we are.
But I want to be clear, Mr. Chair, that in that recommendation, it clearly indicates the positions of the region and or.
I think it would be unfair if we didn't do
I,
that, so.
I agree.
I'm at the board meeting, it'll be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it'll be in the report, so.
That being
That's-
what the, majority of the committee wants to move forward on, then that's fine as long as our positions indicated in that report.
Okay, so for, and I know, Kate, you would like to get through the governance and ownership and maintenance side of it.
I just think let's see if it's quick. I mean, it might be pretty fast.
So some of the options on the governance side that was discussed, I believe it was forming an independent committee to handle governance, right? Out an arm's length to the Capital Regional Service Commission and also with the city, there'd certainly be membership. Another option was it would be handled through this committee, the Regional Infrastructure Committee as part of the Capital Regional Service Commission. And the third option, was there even a third option? No, those,
The ownership remained with the city, that the council, and to the government.
the governance side, okay, we consider that as perhaps the third option. Is there any coalescence around any of those three? Dave, let's start with you.
Oh, dear. I think Fredericton needs the operation and maintenance, the pool. It's in their municipality. It's their, they have the staff, it's their water and all this stuff. The ownership, I have a little bit of an issue because at the end of this 25,
Ownership or governance?
both.
Okay, okay,
I believe the governance should be run, yes, arm's length from the city, whether it be the RSC Service Commission or whether it be another independent body that has obviously city setting on it and whatnot. That's an option
Okay.
for governance, but I don't believe it should just be governed by the municipality that it's in.
okay.
I'm
Okay.
sorry.
No,
Okay.
I don't disagree with
Okay.
that. I mean, I do think, and I think I even look beyond just the city of Fredericton. I think anyone would say if they're operating it and it's attached to one of their existing buildings that they own, that probably the safest is that there be an ownership, which can be done through an MOU. I mean, if there is a term of 25 years, maybe there are ways to be creative in that everyone's comfortable. I do think ownership and operations would need to go together. I also, though, totally agree. If it is a regional piece of infrastructure, the governance should be regional. Certainly city employees should be there, probably city staff, senior staff should be there. There should be representation from the governance, from council, but I think that other regional, just to ensure programming is in the needs of the region and all of that. So I would like a governance body that's external of the Regional Service Commission and of the city of Fredericton, but that has both as part of.
So separate to the Regional Service Commission, but having representation of all those bodies that you.
Yeah, like I don't think that it should be overseen by a Regional Infrastructure Committee or by the RSC Board of Directors, but I certainly think all that representation should be part of it. I mean, it could be a Regional Aquatic Center governance. And this is me, again, I'm sort of talking off it.
Well, I think it's becoming, as we go around the table, I think there's more to this than can be handled in
I
6 minutes.
completely agree with you. I think the owner operator maintenance can be done, but you're right, the governance is huge.
When I
I
give my opinion, I didn't.
You don't
put
wanna
ownership-
separate-
I didn't put ownership in it. Like
Yeah.
I was speaking
Yeah.
outside of ownership.
Yeah.
Yes,
I thought we were coming to that yet.
well,
We were.
that's what I was going to do is separate.
Okay,
I'm a fan of separating governance from everything else.
see, I would tend to do operations, like maintenance ownership. I think that could be one conversation and then governance a separate conversation. I think the first one's pretty easy because it's logistics and the other one is more, is certainly a very thoughtful discussion that needs time.
It is. So, John, you're gonna,
Yeah, I was gonna do, Mr. Chair, kind of another trilogy of things. So we have ownership, governance and operations, and I'm gonna suggest to you that that's the hierarchy, that you begin with ownership, who owns it, because governance flows from that. And the operations can be delivered by a number of different parties. But only certain parties make sense to own it. And that goes hand in hand with the governance as well. So I think we've seen in St. John, one of the problems where St. John owns the facility and the governance is provided by the communities around it and the inherent conflict that went with that. And that's one of the reasons why, as I understand it, it was restructured in reform. It takes more than 6 minutes. I would suggest to you that you might want to meet again and get input from staff and the consultants on the options that are available, the pros and cons of each.
Sure, I'm fine with that. Can I just clarify that on the St. John one, because I don't want us to, it's not apples and apples. St. John built that on their own first and then brought in regional. Where we're doing this is a regional project. It's distinct from the St. John one. I think everyone
Oh, I know
knows
that.
St. John's unequivocally a disaster. Everyone knows that. Even if we were to build this as a region, and the city owned it through an agreement, it would not be the same as the St. John pool experience at all.
And
So,
I have to jump in, and that's
Yeah.
where I say governance is so important.
Yeah.
So
Right.
that's,
so we can mitigate that. You're right. This is a bigger, forgive my overzealousness.
no, that's,
Could get this.
no, that's good. And I just think that exposes a number of things that we have to, what's top of mind for yourself and the rest of around the table, things that we can think about, and we can do that at the April 23rd meeting. Or 24th.
The 23rd.
23rd.
Yeah, sorry.
Is that a rain date?
24th. No, it's already scheduled. It's in your calendars for the 23rd. And we left it in there even though we were having this special meeting today,
Yes,
so that we can have another, just in case we needed more than 6 minutes to deal with ownership, governance and operations. So,
well, and yes, so are we okay as a committee to move forward with that discussion on April 23rd?
Sure, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Whomever, so the decision that we did make today through recommendation to the board, when does that get presented
That'll go to the board at its May meeting.
at its May meeting? So, and the goal is, so will this other conversation, all these things will be taken.
Yes.
Certainly hope so.
For the May meeting, like that's the goal, right?
So we have the final date for the board packages is the 30th of April. So we'll have a week after the 23rd meeting
Right,
to
okay.
coalesce whatever decision.
And I encourage committee members to certainly keep their mind to this discussion we had of ownership,
Mhm,
governance
mhm.
and operations.
Encourage people
To-
to, consider what the end looks like.
What the end looks like.
Start with the ending and, because that's the part that for those who don't own assets may have not given much thought to, but that's the critical part.
Mhm.
And you're talking the 25 years when you're saying the end.
Yes,
Yes, that was my concern when I
Yes.
brought it up. What happens after that?
at 25 years.
And relative to ownership too, you may want to have a discussion with your treasurers and with the municipal borrowing board. Because if you're borrowing money towards a capital, ask the question, how can you practically do that if you own it or if you co-own it with somebody else? So these are questions in preparation for your next session.
Well, I would direct that to the commission to, first the Provincial Service Commission to come forth with those answers. Staff.
So is there anything wrong with the commission and owning it on behalf of the municipalities?
That could be an option.
Can they have, so the commission owns it.
We
but
own
like-
a solid waste facility.
Right, but look at the amount of staff we have to do it.
That's
Like,
different than
what are their
operations.
Yeah, no, I mean, we can say that all we want. But if you're owning something that's attached to an existing building that has staff already that knows how to run it. Like, I don't know why, I don't know, I guess we all come with our own mindsets. To me, it's like a no-brainer.
Well, that's a really important
Yeah.
thing. Those are the kind of things we have to consider.
Yeah.
What what challenges would that pose? And it might quickly, is not list, like the strengths and weaknesses of it, right?
Feasible, folks. For those who don't own any assets and operate, it's not feasible to begin. Because we have a built-in workforce, so anyone who thinks, well, I need 4 people, no, you need 8. Because guess what? One of them's on mat leave, 2 of them are sick. And when you need that many people to operate a facility or it's not open that day, it's not feasible to try to build your own workforce when there's groups that already have it built.
Yeah, but there's many models in this province where a facility is owned by an entity and is managed and operated by other entities very successfully.
Not when they're attached. The attached systems, I think that does make it a bit
I
unique.
don't think so, Kate. There are all kinds, you go through the country, there are
Do you know
all,
what? Talk to the geothermal folks and see how comfortable they're gonna be taking water out of their rink and putting it into a pool. That system is a nightmare. It's been a nightmare since we ran it. I just don't know why would the RSC, I say as an RSC member, we've got our hands full trying to do what it is that we've been mandated to do. Why we would take a pool on as an RSC beyond, and running that is beyond me. We can,
This is a good discussion for the 23rd, and these are the kind of things because we don't want to get anything in front of us that won't be a success, right? We're hearing things that might be challenges because you have experience. I think all of us have to bring that to the table. I can say, I don't know, because I can tell you Arcadia does not want to run it or own it unless someone gives us a bunch of money to do it. So,
Yeah.
and even then I would think twice.
But that brings the other aspect, you just said the main thing is money. If you put governance and ownership on this side, then you gotta hire more people. Whereas if you put it as the owners that's running it, then it's just another task that that person is gonna run out of the city or out of the.
And hopefully lessening the cost.
And loosening the dollars and cents, so we don't have
should
to
adjourn the meeting, we can still talk.
Yeah,
It's like
okay.
economies of
Can I have a motion for adjournment? Anyone? Excellent. Seconder,
That's an easy thing.
second, all those in favor? Excellent.
I just didn't want all this